Fortnite, the inexplicably popular battle royale shooter, becomes the latest victim of the Chinese censorship push against video games. Though not actually by any direct action of China. This is something that is often misunderstood or misrepresented for malicious reasons by various parties. Fortnite was never banned in China, and the official shutdown of Fortnite in China, including big events, giving away experience and free in-game currency for a final last hurrah, is not an example of China directly moving against Fortnite for any particular reason. In fact, Fortnite's creators, Epic Games, and their local partners, required by law, mind you, Tencent Games, did everything in their power to try and make the game compliant with local Chinese regulation, such as removing blood or censoring certain unfortunate in-game skins and costumes that didn't mesh quite well with the Chinese morality standards. This is also one of the reasons why, of course, Steam is able to operate in China unofficially with the international version, whilst also having a Chinese version, at least for the time being. The thing is, they were simply just never officially licensed in China, which means that the Fortnite servers, they were allowed to exist, their local partners were allowed to continue to run the game and offer it as a service, but they weren't actually allowed to monetize most of it. They weren't allowed to put in microtransactions or many of the other monetization features that the Western game client has. And there, of course, is the problem, isn't it? If you can't earn money off a product, then it's not really all that much of a product, isn't it? And eventually, Epic and Tencent figured that they might as well pull the plug, because if it hasn't been accepted previously under the far more lenient government regulations that we had over the last few years, then it is extraordinarily unlikely that it's finally going to be accepted now, as the legislation becomes ever more stringent and game time becomes ever more controlled as well, requiring a personal ID identification that you can prove that you are an adult, otherwise you can only play for a couple of hours on the weekend. Oh yes, the Chinese gaming market, whilst it is a massive one, is also an extraordinarily temperamental and dangerous one. And since, of course, Epic wants to monetize this through their own stores and their own areas, they don't want to use Steam services for this, and using Steam just for one game in China would be not only a massive surrender, but also a PR disaster. Epic Game already gets a lot of stick, deservedly so, for their collaboration with Tencent, which also owns a sizable slice of their company. And Tencent and Chinese corporations in general tend to not just give away money for nothing. They usually have some expectations of having their backs scratched in return as well. Though, I will say this, whilst obviously this is unfortunate for all of those who were fans of Fortnite in China, who are now no longer going to have access to the service, and with the heavy regulations on the internet in China getting easy access to other nations' Fortnite servers, is going to be an interesting experience. Not impossible, but certainly a hell of a lot more complicated than it is at the moment. This is a good thing for gaming in general. In fact, I believe this is one of those necessary little scares that the gaming industry absolutely desperately requires right now. I keep harping on about creative assembly when it comes to the Chinese problem, quote-unquote, because they used to be one of my favorite gaming companies. I used to love every single Total War title. I would buy them immediately and I would play them to death. But ever since Britannica, I can't even remember the name of it, that was the first proper disappointment. The first Total War game I bought, and I couldn't wait to uninstall it. The only thing that kept me playing it for the 20-odd hours was because I needed to make a review video on it. And ever since, it's been downhill from there. The idea that the second Warhammer game would be a full $60 installment, I didn't like that at all, and having realized that they can get away with selling expansion packs for full price, Creative Assembly is now doing the very same thing, of course, with the Three Kingdoms. Originally, they had apparently all kinds of plans. They even unlocked areas of the map that you could see like Korea, and then suddenly the news broke that all future expansions for Three Kingdoms would cease immediately, and instead, the studio would get to work on new major titles in China. Three Kingdoms 2. Not confirmed yet, but it is the most likely reason. Hopefully though, and Creative Assembly also had a massive push to have that accepted by the Chinese audience. You could go so far as to argue, with a fair bit of gravitas as well, that the only reason why they chose to make Total War Three Kingdoms in the first place was to have a shot at that Chinese market. Now, the game has still not, to the best of my knowledge, actually been officially accepted in China, as the first time I checked on the Chinese Steam store, there was no Total War Three Kingdoms available, meaning that the game is currently being sold on the grey market in China's international Steam, which is still available. And again, if it wasn't accepted during the first round, back when restrictions were far more lenient, odds are that they're not going to get accepted in the future. Unless, of course, this is one of the reasons why they decided to make a new game entirely. Speculation here that if they knew that restrictions were tightening, as they did at the time, then perhaps making an entirely new entry, making damn sure that you get as close to hitting all of the markers as possible, including probably real-life ID, potentially even facial identification, something already put into other games, might be the reason. Though I hope the actual reason for the cease in development is that they realize that no matter how many patch notes you put out in full Mandarin, etc., you're not going to gain any favors with the Chinese Communist Party. They really don't care about you, unless you are willing, of course, to kowtow to their every demand, which Creative Assembly might still do. Still, Epic Games is, regardless of whether you love or hate them, the majority probably heading towards the latter of those two options, they are a major force within gaming, and whilst many of their business practices are certainly quite harmful, at the very least the theoretical ideas that they are espousing, more money to the developers, less to the storefronts, who, in the case of Steam, etc., do take a fairly ludicrous 30% cut for essentially being a storefront. If they could just free themselves from the baggage of being associated with China, the baggage of Tencent, maybe, just maybe, they can restore a little bit of their otherwise tattered reputation. I don't know. I think this could be a good thing. Again, unfortunate for all of those who are actually fans of Fortnite in China, but hey, considering that a large portion of that audience couldn't even play the game beyond a couple of hours on the weekend, perhaps this is the kind of tough love that is frankly required. Maybe it might even cause enough of a public outcry. See, I can't finish that thought because in the middle of it I realized, oh wait, literal communist dictatorship. Yeah, no amount of public outcry is going to make the Chinese official state censors decide to give Fortnite a license. That's not gonna happen. Oh well. Best case scenario, Epic will learn from their mistakes and perhaps focus a little bit more on being more of a Western-centric developer instead. We'll have to wait and see. Until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like and a comment, because those are the things that the YouTube algorithm likes the very most. Triple engagement. That is the best way to do anything and everything in life and on YouTube. Have a good day.